No. Share screen. Okay. Oops. Is that already start? Yes. Okay, I'm going to go over today some of what we were supposed to have done in Chapter 1 and make sure. I went through some of the Google Drives. I'm going to pull that up first and see if everyone has their, if there's anyone up here that are in here that does not see your Google Drive shared here. I have this. I can actually take attendance this way too. There's Luke, right? Is that what you go by? Luke. Luke, I have Piers, Donahue, Amanda, she's not here today. Aaron Crum, okay, Alec Moore, Brian Bridges, David Lyons, Enrique Cardenas, that, okay, Juan Pasilis, okay, Kaisha Peters, I don't see any girls in here today. Mason Campbell, okay, Nicholas Brock, okay, Nicholas Carey, and Nicholas Martinez. They put all three of them together. Rodrigo, okay. Oh, I think, okay, is this inside? I probably just accidentally clicked that one. Let me see if I can move it back. Because that's actually inside your other one, right, Mason? Is it inside the main one? Somehow I think I, okay, let's see. Move to, let me just uncheck it and see if it'll, alright, oops. Yeah, somehow I put it in that folder. That's alright. If it's in the other one, it's not a problem. Who came in? Keisha. Okay. Yeah, and I've got your folder here. Oh, I did need to go back also and take attendance. Let me see. I think everyone's come at least once in this class, though. But I'm going to have to add. Okay, where's it going to have me do that? Up here. Edit the register. Today is the 25th. Add. I don't know why it won't add one. I had trouble with this. This is the session that it wouldn't let me add one. But I just need to make sure that everyone, I think, has, okay, who is this one? Gary Oliver. Is there Gary Oliver in here this time? No? Okay, and Keisha has attended now. Kevin Red. Okay, so you weren't here the first day, but you were here the second day. Is that right? Okay. And who was the other one? Mason was the same way?
I was here the first day.
Okay. Okay, let me go in here and fix that so I know. Not that. Mason Campbell should be up here. I was thinking you've been here every day. Okay. All right. Is there anybody in here that this was your first day that I don't see? Maybe enrolled late or something. Okay. And John's back. All right. So what you should have in each one of your folders, or not in each one, in your Chapter 1 folder, you should either have 2 documents or you should have one, like this one may have all, does this have all of even 6 on it? Yes. Okay, so you can either have one document with all of the assignments on it, or actually just one with, or some people have 2 documents in there. Okay, so up to this point, and I want to make sure this is doing my screen. Yeah, it is. Up to this point, we have done only pseudocode, and I did demo with the Lucid chart last Thursday. So did everyone that wanted an invite to Lucid chart, did they get that? Okay, you didn't get yours. Okay, how many of you still want the Lucid chart? Okay, did you email me? Okay, if you still want that's okay. If you want the invite, if I didn't get you added in class, I tried to add some of you in class and then we ran out of time. Go ahead and email me, because that's what I'll be using in class is Lucid chart, so it may be easier for you to follow along with that. So just send it to my raider.rose.edu and say, could you invite me to Lucid chart, and then it'll let you join, okay? I have quite a few added on there now from all my sections. So today, what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm going to go over the exercises 1 through 3, the answers. And so if you have not put the Chapter 1 exercises into your folder yet, you will actually, I'm going to cover everything today, and you will actually have until Thursday to do that. Because what the daily exercises, I'm actually just checking off to make sure you've completed them. I'm not looking at each one and saying, oh, they got that answer right, okay? That's why we're going to go over the answers, the correct answers in class. And if you want to re-upload yours, feel free to do that, because these are learning exercises. I just want to be sure that you're learning through the daily work, okay? And then I will be on Thursday assigning our first project, okay? So what I'm going to look at, we're going to look at the chapter exercises 1 through 3 and the correct answers, and then we're also going to take problems 4 and 5 that we did in class, and we're going to turn those into JavaScript, okay? Is anyone in here familiar with another scripting language? Anybody like any other scripting language? Some people say that Python is a lot easier. I just haven't used it yet, and so I didn't know if anybody else had used Python, because you can use other scripting languages, but the ones that I'll be using, the one that I'll be demonstrating with in class right now is JavaScript. I didn't have time to look over Python.
Compared to Java, Python is a little bit easier because you don't have to pay attention to the
syntax, probably the
punctuation.
Punctuation, yeah, like semicolons.
It's almost exactly the same, except instead of the punctuation, just you need the proper spacing, and that's it.
Oh, it actually adheres to space. That's the first one that I've known of that uses spacing. But some of my other colleagues have said they really like Python. So I'm hoping between semesters I'll go ahead and get up on Python. But right now, JavaScript's the one that I'm familiar with. But should you want to use Python, I don't have a problem with that, because we're not really learning the scripting language in here per se. We're actually using it to help us learn logic. So I do not care which one you want to make yours work with, because the deal with scripting is that it opens in a browser window, so anybody can see what you're doing with your logic, and that's why we use a scripting language rather than have to have a compiler and all that down here. So okay, and if I get a chance, I might try to redo one of them in Python so you can see the similarities. What I was also told by my colleagues is it's more common language than like what JavaScript is. So just normal words, like almost like putting your pseudocode over there, okay? All right, so exercises 1 through 3, I'm going to open right now, and I'm probably going to have to change my screen on my drive, because it won't pick this up. Let's see. Solutions, chapter 1. Okay, let me go up here. And let me make sure with my, yeah, that's what I thought. My Google Drive, I'm going to have to change my screen share because it won't show what I need it to show. Where? There it is. Okay, so in chapter 1, problem number 1 was, which of the following are examples of hardware and which are examples of software? This is probably one of the easiest ones, because is there anybody in here that had never heard those two terms? Well, no, I shouldn't say that because you probably don't want to raise your hand anyway. But nowadays, hardware and software is pretty common in our everyday language because we have computers with us all the time, whether it be our smartphone, whatever. When I started teaching this in '92, there were still quite a few people that did not have computer literacy courses or intro to computers, or did not have it throughout school. And so a lot of this terminology was new to them. So there's a real advantage that you all have, because I'm assuming most of you either had some type of computer class in school, or maybe literacy, or even if not, just in talking with people you learned it, right? I didn't have it in school. Anybody in here not have it in school? That's what I thought. David and I are two of them here, but I'm a lot older than you two. So that's right. That's right. It didn't with me either. Okay, so which of the following are examples? Microsoft Word. What's Microsoft Word? Software. iTunes. Laser printer. A USB flash drive. A laptop battery. Super Mario Brothers. Facebook. Software. See, and my grandson, okay, he's 9 now. He's probably had an iPad or mouse in his hand with games on it ever since he was able to see his parents with their phone playing games. So, all right, the next one might be a little tougher. I think people, until I told them that there are some that there's no error, that was a little confusing. They didn't give you that option here. It said, tell if it's syntax or logic. Well, there are also some with no errors. So here's what we're going to read. Suppose that Donna has called her friends, Carlos and Ramona, to ask them over for dinner. Which of the following are similar to syntax errors and which are like logic errors? Okay, Donna asked Carlos to lunch. Is that syntax or logic or no error?
Logic.
It's logic. And why is it logic?
She's inviting them to dinner, not lunch.
Correct. And that may seem, you know, a minor detail, but that's a very important detail. Okay, B, Donna asked Carlos to dinner. Syntax, logic, or no error?
No error.
No error. Good. C, Ramona asked Donna to dinner. Syntax, logic, or no error?
Logic.
Logic. Why was that?
It's Ramona's getting invited.
Yeah, so it's flipped, isn't it? That should say Donna asked Ramona to dinner, correct? Now, if anyone has a question about these, please raise your hand. I know we don't like to ask questions, but if you have a question, there's probably several others that do. So be sure and ask if you don't understand the answer. Donna asked Ramona to dinner. What is that one? None? Syntax. Why is it syntax? Ask, that's not how you spell it, right? We have to know a little bit about spelling. That will be one of your most common errors in the beginning with JavaScript, is just mistyping a word, or if you're not a good speller, maybe not even be mistyping it. It may just be where you don't know how to spell, okay? So that one's syntax. Carlos and Donna are friends. Is that syntax, logic, or no error? No error, because they are friends. It says Donna has called her friends Carlos and Ramona. Okay, what about F? Carlos and Ramona are friends. Logic error. Why is that? Very good. That's what we're picking up. We want to pick up every little detail that is not stated or is stated. Okay? All right. Of each of the following pairs of tasks, which one should be completed first? A, testing a program or translating a program? Right. You can't test it until it's made machine language. B, developing the logic for a program or coding a program? Developing the logic. But many of you who probably played around with programming or did anything in high school, you like to bypass the developing. You just like to start writing the code. That's what I had problems with students, well, not just students. Even when I started coding, I always had to think it out first because my brain doesn't work fast enough to just start coding. But a lot of you guys, you can pick that up at the same time, and so you'll start coding. The only problem with that is when you're in industry, you start coding something and then you realize that you forgot something that belonged up at the top, or it's better to develop the logic first and walk it through before you start coding. I know that was why when I told you all about when I learned where I had to was only able to run a program 3 times a night, and it may have 300 lines of code. Well, it was important that I had ran through that code while I was sitting at my desk and seeing if the logic was correct, because I only got 3 tries a night. So now you don't have that limitation, so it's easier sometimes to just try to let the browser debug it for you, and I do that too, because we can make a little change. What we're going to see is we can make a little change in JavaScript or HTML and just open it up in the browser and see if it's right. So that's a lot easier than trying to develop it and find the errors. Okay, C, coding a program or translating a program? Coding. Okay, D, translating a program or developing the logic for a program? Right, that's going to be our first step, is developing the logic. Okay, so now we solved the other day, I think it was Thursday, the problem number 4, which was to, when the user input a number, then add 10 to it and output the answer. So there was both the flowchart and the pseudocode. Now, when we JavaScript a program, we actually have a line of JavaScript code for each line of pseudocode or each one of the boxes in our flowchart. And that's how we can test our logic on the computer. Start and stop are really just part of the pseudocode. And so we're going to look at, by using, I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to use Text Wrangler. Okay, those of you that are using your desktop, you will use TextPad. And the way you get to TextPad is it's under Programs, should be under All Programs. Oh, I'm not on the Windows. Let's see if I can help. Does everybody know how to get to TextPad? If you don't, raise your hand and I'll help you. If you're on your laptop, you don't have to. Okay. Go over to All Programs, down in the Start button, and All Programs, and then you should see TextPad. There you go. All right. Once you get TextPad open, that's what we're going to use to JavaScript. But before we actually start coding this in JavaScript, we're going to look at our hello JavaScript file, and we'll open it in TextPad. Now, the thing about JavaScript is, even though we call it JavaScript, it's surrounded by HTML. So when you save the file, the most important thing, it has to be saved as the name of it .html or .htm. I just always use HTML because it makes more sense. But then if you save it in TextPad, it sometimes will default to .txt, which will give you a problem because it will just open in a text editor, then it won't actually run. So if we go over to, let me make sure I'm going to get this open right. We want to go over to, first to D2L and look at our starter JavaScript file. So if you go to your D2L, go to Content, and you can either watch this part up here or you can do what I'm doing here. You go to, let me make sure this window is open. No, it is not. Okay, screen share, this one. Okay, so whenever you get over to D2L and to the content area, then you go to the software link. And now, how many have loaded TextPad at home or Text Wrangler if you're on a Mac? Okay, anybody have any trouble with that? If you are working from home, then if you're on a PC, you'll download TextPad, which the actual software is here, and install it. Or if you want to use another editor, it's just really hard to use like Notepad or something. It's better not to because it'll, yes? If it's a scripting editor, you can use that. You can use whatever editor is easy for you. TextPad's one that's free that we have loaded here. Then on my Mac, on your Mac, you can download Text Wrangler here, or you can just go out and search for it yourself. But what we're going to download now is you would download this Hello World in JavaScript, and it will download as a zipped file into your downloads folder. Now, since I don't have Windows up here, what it does on your downloads, in your downloads folder, you're going to have to right-click and extract all. If you're on a Mac, you just double-click and it unzips, okay? But in Windows, you have to right-click on it and do extract all. You remember, John, we had problems with that, huh? Okay, so anybody want to do that? So that you can see what, when it downloads, let me see, you're also going to have access that are already downloaded. If you go to, let me tell you another easier way if you want to, that I think they're already unzipped. If you go into Evernote, and then you scroll down to week 2, I have put a folder, week 2 examples I've shared with you. And so you can download from there, I believe, let me see, multiplying, there's the starter. I don't see the Hello World still zipped there though. So you still probably need to download the zipped one, because the zipped one is the one that's still in the HTML form. So if you click here and say download, like what mine is going to do is put it in my downloads as Hello World Program. And then if I go to my downloads folder, and this one is Hello World. There it is. Okay, on yours, I would right-click here and just simply say, double-click it, and it will unzip into a folder, and it'll just be an HTML file. But in Windows, you have to right-click, and you should have an option that says Extract All. Everybody find that? And then once you have that, then if you double-click on that one, what happens is it will automatically open in the browser window and you won't see the code for it. So what we would do next is, let me go over here and examples by week 2. All right, so my Hello World, here it is in HTML, and I want to open it with Text Wrangler or TextPad if you're on the PC. So once you have it like that, right-click on it and say Open with TextPad. Okay, here's my Text Wrangler version of it. Here again, I'm going to have to do a different share screen. There it is. Okay, so what we have is all this top part before it gets to write your program below this line. Does anybody know what kind of code that is? What do you think that is? HTML. So everything above, write your program below this line, and below, do not write below this line, is HTML. Okay? And so you don't have to worry about what kind of HTML needs to go around your script. Everything we code is going to be in between these lines. So this line of code, I added something in there. Let's see, and that's because I want to show you what it does. Here's the hello world. So if I do file save on it, and if you're in TextPad, there's a little globe, a little world globe up there. If you click on it, it'll run your program in the browser automatically. Mine, I go here, and then I say open with, I like to open it with Chrome. So there is hello world. So that's what all of that code does. Now, how can I tell that that's what this code is doing? If I right-click and say View Page Source, it shows me that exact code is what's behind my browser screen. You cannot? Which browser are you in? Do not. That's the only browser that you do not want to use. JavaScript, Microsoft is flaky. They will not get up to standards in their Internet Explorer. So JavaScript runs differently in every browser, but you can, do you have Firefox or Chrome downloaded? Either one? Okay, you can use Firefox. It will work. You can use, if you're on the Mac, some people are using Safari, which you don't have to put as much code in the JavaScript if you're on Safari, but every browser works differently. Okay, so that's why it should open in Firefox. Ooh, something's, you know, what in the world? Somebody must have came on my Google Hangout with their sound not off. Oops, that wasn't what I wanted. Yep, they did. Oh, she muted it now. Okay. All right, so this line of code, what document.writeLine does is it writes anything that's in the parentheses in quotes out to the browser window. So anytime in my pseudocode that I have the word output, I would replace it in JavaScript with document.writeLine, and if it's a variable name, I don't put it in quotes. We'll look at that. But if I wanted to change what goes out, excuse me, I always sneeze up here. I don't know why. Yeah. So hello world, I can say hello world class number 8056, and it's going to change but I have to save it, or it will just display what the last one was. So now if I go over here and I say open with Chrome, hello world, class number 8056. Did you get yours to work? Okay. You're Nicholas, right? One of the Nicholas. Okay. All right. So that's what that Hello World program does. Now, there's another download program you saw, which was called Starter JavaScript. Well, for the sake of having to download it, I'm just going to show you what it looks like. This has nothing in it in the middle, but this part is the same. So if I say File, save as. I'm going to call this one starter so it doesn't oops, I didn't spell it right. Starter. And I have to save it like this in week 2. Now, if I run this one, does anybody know what's going to happen? Anybody guess? Nothing. That is correct. Because there is nothing in the middle. So if I go here and I say, show me this in Google Chrome, nothing in my browser window, right? Because all that HTML code is just talking to the browser and setting it up and saying, here's some script that's coming. Well, we didn't put any in there, in between those 2 script tags. So there's nothing there. So this file, what we're using this file for, is just to be there for us to put our script code in. Okay? So when we create any problems, we'll always start with this file. So every time, like if we're going to code problem number 4, and we open up the starter file, we want to be sure and do file, save as, and name it our problem, because otherwise we'll start coding inside our starter file. Okay? So if we want, we can do save as here, but what I'm going to do, I already have that problem number 4 open somewhere, so let me go to it. So problem number 4. Here is our pseudocode was here. Input my number, my answer equals my number plus 10, output my answer. Now, I don't need to code the start or the stop, okay? But before I can code the input my number, I have to make declarations to the browser. I have to tell the browser what my number is and what my answer is. Because what that's going to do is make a space in memory called my number that I can store things in. And it's going to make a place in memory called my answer. Now, I can name these variables anything I want. Doesn't matter what I name them, but whatever I name them here in my declaration, then I must use that same name down here, because if the browser comes across something that just says answer without my in front of it, and up here I've called it my answer, it won't know what you're talking about. And so it will be 2 different variables. Okay? So the way in JavaScript that I tell the browser that I'm declaring a variable is by putting bar in front of my number and bar in front of my answer. And what's your name? Pierce. What he was talking about, syntax, is that Python doesn't make you put these semicolons. JavaScript does. At the end of every statement in JavaScript, you may be lucky and yours may run if you forget one, but that is the standard in JavaScript and in Java and in C++, C#. So if you just learn to put a semicolon at the end, it'll help you later on, even if you get by with it running without them. So these are the only 2 things that are not in my pseudocode that have to, I made an error there. This is the other line of code that's not in my pseudocode. Okay, but if I say in my pseudocode, input my number, in JavaScript, the way you say input is with a prompt. Because a prompt makes a dialog box come up on the screen and ask the user, please enter a number. The comma 0 causes it to default to a 0, end my number until I enter something. So here's what this is how you say input my number. You say my number equals prompt, please enter a number. So when I run this program, it's going to come up to the screen and say, please enter a number, And when I enter a number, it's going to put that into that variable, my number, right? Then the reason we do this, my number equals my number times 1, what happens when you multiply any number times 1? It's that number, right? It's the identity number. It's what? It's the identity property, which says it will be 1. So what that tells the browser is that this is a numeric value. Multiply it times 1. Don't take it in as a alphanumeric character or a string. Okay, so this is the second line of code that I always want to do just for safety's sake. It may run without it. I think in Safari they didn't have any. They didn't need to put that in there. Okay. Then my answer equals my number plus 10. So the only way this differs from my pseudocode is that it has a semicolon at the end, right? See that? So this is my processing box. And it says, oops, not that one. It says my answer equals my number plus 10. And then what does document.writeLine represent? What did I tell you in JavaScript? It's the same as what in pseudocode? Not input, which output, because we're writing out. Prompt is bringing it into memory. WriteLine is going to write it out to the screen. So when it says document.writeLine, anytime I have output in my pseudocode, that's what I would use. But this time you'll notice my answer is not in quotes. Anybody know why? Why is my answer not in quotes? Like when I said hello world. Good. It is a variable. So we don't want it. If I put quotes around it, what will happen? Correct. So now, whenever I do document.writeLine to the screen, instead of printing out what's inside my answer, it's going to print out my answer. It's going to print out this. In other words, okay, first I'm going to do it the correct way, and then we're going to play around with it. Okay, so if I run this, let me make sure that I've got it saved right. So now if I go out to my browser, now you'll notice this is important. It has to say .html. It can't say .txt or it won't run. Okay, so open with Google Chrome. There's my dialog box. It says, only y'all probably can't see it back at the back, but it says please enter a number because that's what was in quotes in my prompt, right? So I'm going to enter 5. So when I say okay, what should be my answer? I'm adding 10 to it, right? So if my program's right, what should pop up? What's 10 plus 5? 15. So that's what should pop up. So if I click OK, there's 15. All right, so my JavaScript worked right. So if I go back, and let's say, so it printed out what was in my answer. But if I go here and I put quotes in document.writeLine, I say file save, see what happened? It just printed out my answer, the variable name, not the contents of the variable. Okay? All right. So anybody have any questions about this JavaScript here? Okay, so we're going to look at the one that's called the problem 5. Problem 5 is, oops, there it is. So problem 5, what the pseudocode said on problem 5, or first the problem was, you needed to write a program that accepts 2 numbers as input and displays the product of the numbers, right? Okay, so that means we're going to multiply them, right? That's what product means. Okay, so our pseudocode and flowchart was here, and it said input my number 1, input my number 2, my product equals my number 1 times my number 2, output my product. Okay, so I'm going to have, what word in JavaScript takes the place of input in my pseudocode? What's that? What do I do instead of input in JavaScript? Prompt. Who said prompt? Somebody said prompt. Okay, so I'm going to have 2 prompts. So I'm going to ask for 2 variables from the user this time. I want number 1 and number 2. And then this statement should be exactly the same as it is here. Then what do I use for output? Document.writeLine. Good. So I don't want this start and stop in my JavaScript, okay? Don't put the start and stop in there. It won't work. Probably would in Python. They probably do something like that. Okay, so here we go. So now we have 3 variables. So we have to make 3 declarations. And when I wrote the program, I did num1, num2 instead of saying my number 1, my number 2. Okay? So the important thing is, whatever you name these variables, that you use that name down here. Okay? So I can't switch down here to my number 1 and my number 2, because up here, when I declared them as num1, num2, and product. Does everybody understand that? Whatever you pick for the variable name doesn't matter as long as it matches variable coding, which in chapter 1, somewhere there, it does talk about naming variables. I can't remember where that is. Somewhere. But there's certain rules. You don't use special characters. You can use an underscore. You can use a hyphen. But you don't use spaces in names either. Okay, so this one has 2 prompts. Then, because there's 2 numeric characters that are coming in, we have to multiply each one of those times 1. Then here is my processing step, num1 times num2. In JavaScript, and just like I was telling you in pseudocode, I think we use the asterisk for multiplication. Then document.writeLine, and in parentheses, the answer is product. So we could have still used answer instead of product. It doesn't matter what the name is. Okay? So now I'm going to try running this one. Let's see if it works right. Enter a number. I'm going to enter 4 and 5, so it should print out 20, and sure enough it did. Okay? Now, these are the ones that I've done for you, and so now what I want you to do is to, before Thursday, is to do that with problem number 6. Who thinks their problem number 6 is right in pseudocode? Got it? Okay. You're with Brock? What? No. Is that your last name? Okay. So let me go up here and look at yours. Oops. Let's go back to screen share. I'm going to do. Oh, it's not that one. That one, maybe. Maybe that'll do it. Okay, so we're going to go. Where did the Google Drive go? Come on, open up. Okay, so in here, if I look at, go to Nicholas Brock. There it is. Okay, in his chapter 1, exercise 6 pseudocode. Okay, answer equals repeat num 5 times. That is what it says to do, but how could we write that in, because we're not really going to multiply num times 5, right? So what are we going to do here? Who did I help do that? Luke, was it you? Did I help do that one? Uh-huh. Okay, let's see. What is yours is right here. Because this one can be very tricky. Because what it's saying is to output the number, right? So is there any processing that we do? It just says input a number, then output it 5 times, right? So do we even have a processing box in our flowchart? No. We only have an input, and then we have an output. But we have the output how many times? 5. So if we look at number 6, that's what our pseudocode should look like. Start, input num, and you can say display num or output num, whichever makes more sense. We've been using output, so you might want to put output num, output num, output num. So there's no processing steps. So in our JavaScript, you're going to have 1 input and 5 outputs, right? Okay, everybody can code it right now if they want to. We've got a few, we got finished earlier in this class. Okay, when you get that finished, what you need to do is upload it to your Chapter 1 folder, and what you have to do is you usually, let me see if I can find somebody's that did not zip it and if it worked. Because you usually have to zip an HTML file when you upload it, or it intercepts it as HTML and does squirrely stuff, blanks it out. So let me see. Let me go to, what was my class number yesterday? Oh. I think we had one. Nope, that one's not. There should be, if you have to zip it, you would just right-click on it and zip it. It says compress. If you zip it on this Windows computer and upload it, don't pick 7-zip, okay? When you right-click on it, it'll give you an option for 7-zip, and then it'll give you an option, I think, for compress, okay? So don't do 7-zip. All right, anybody need any help? Is everybody doing okay? Let me get back here and stop my broadcast.